Welcome to the Nickolas and Natali Show. Today on the podcast, guest Drew Talbert. He studied and practiced acting for 20 years, studied improv for 10 years, and teaches improv at the Groundlings Theater in Hollywood. He's worked as a waiter for 23 years and has overcome a drug addiction. He's now 5.5 years clean. Awesome. He has over 205,000 followers on Tik Tok, just about as many wigs, a 1.5-year-old son, a supportive wife who always support him and let him chase his dreams. Him and Nick chatted about his upbringing, religion, comedy, improv, and his growth on the TikTokers for you young kids. This week's riddle: what does a boat do when it gets sick? Tune into the end of the podcast and you can see my answer. Head on over to nickolasnatali.com/shop. Get yourself a t-shirt, a sweatshirt, a sticker, whatever you want. YouTube.com/nickolasnatali. New videos every Monday. Leave a 5-star review. You could become the reviewer of the week. We're trying to get to 100 5-star reviews fast. This week's reviewer of the week, Emily Thomas. She gave 5 stars. So shout out to you, Emily. I wish there was 100 more people like you. That's the truth. As always, this episode is sponsored by Little Webby LLC at littlewebby.com. Creates the best darn custom software, websites, and mobile applications. Email them at littlewebbyllc@gmail.com. So we send you for a free 30-minute consultation. As always, I'm the intern. You're the listener. This is Nick.
Hello and welcome. This is the Nickolas and Natali Show. I am your host, Nickolas and Natali. Today we have a very special guest, Drew Talbert. Drew, season's greetings.
Oh! I didn't realize it was a season, the COVID season.
Yeah, greeting you right into COVID all over again. Yikes! You got to keep the festivities alive, or else you can't lose it.
Like my neighbor who keeps their Christmas decorations up year round, right?
That's one way to do it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna knock them.
I always feel like they win though when Christmas comes back around. Like, this is your moment, buddy. You know, we all mocked you from January to November, but here you are. You didn't have to put them back up.
I've been waiting all year for this. It's also like the lights too. Like if you get the right lights that could pass for maybe like a Valentine's Day theme, like you could run those things December to February, you know?
Yeah, just go like red and white.
You got July 4th in there if you keep it up.
Represent blood on Halloween. You don't need orange.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we're onto something here.
Yeah, gargoyles.
All sorts of decorations. I want to dive right into it. I want to dive into your story a bit because it's fascinating, honestly. I think so.
It is.
You grew up Nashville, Tennessee, as the youngest. Got a brother, got a sister. You're homeschooled. And now I feel like everything I've seen about you and research-wise, you're as creative as can be. Is there anything about your upbringing that gave you some creativity in there?
Yeah, I mean, my parents fostered creativity, I would say. You know, like the biggest thing I think was what we did not have. My parents got rid of the television.
Oh, wow.
I was 2 years old. And my dad believed God told him to, which is its own separate podcast. Things my dad believes God told him to do. But we got rid of the television, and so I read constantly. And I'm old. I'm an old man. So this is 1942. No, in the 80s.
42.
Yeah. This is the 80s, and we got rid of the TV, and I just wore out my library card and would read all the time. And then I'd run out of books. And so then I started recording just basically the first podcast before you and I were doing this type. I would just put a tape in the family stereo, because where you have a television in your living room, our family just had this big stereo. And I would record, my friend and I sometimes would do it together, like fake news shows and sporting events and stuff like that. We would just like record that stuff. I remember the urge to write at a very early age, and I would write stories, some stories about a character named Big Bad Pete. It was like a Western tales. I took it very seriously, like hand scrawled.
Yeah.
And then my mom got a bag of wigs from my grandmother. I remember, like, just old lady wigs. My grandmother was not an actor. It was literal wigs that ladies would wear, you know. And
Wow. Yeah.
and I would put those on and play little characters and stuff. And another outlet of creativity, I guess you could say, was trying to just make my family laugh at the dinner table. And it was really just my sister. She would laugh. Everybody.
Yeah. Man, I love the thought of you recording something for the stereo. Were you playing them in front of people, like after you had recorded them?
Anyone who listened, which was my family, that's it.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't have, God, just, you're making me think, like, if we had internet at the time, I would have been a really obnoxious kid. I would have been like,
Blasting it.
The kid, the 5-year-old with the YouTube channel thing, I would have been that kid if they allowed. I don't even know if there's like an age restriction, but I would have definitely been that kid. I would have lost my mind with like YouTube.
Yeah.
And I am now. So
yeah, look at that. Full circle.
Nothing's changed.
When you grew up without TV, did you have a favorite children's book? Did you read series? What type of books were you dabbling in at the library?
So mostly like stuff that was appropriate for my age, because I just kept reading and reading. Like, no, I mean, as I got older, I'm sure I went from like Judy Blume to more detailed stuff. But when I was a kid, it was like Hardy Boys, Judy Blume, and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Nice.
What was Judy Blume's famous one about worms? Like something about eating worms or something like that. And I thought that was epic. I would also read just joke books. Like and they would be a source of comfort for me if I ever had a nightmare. I would just go to the bathroom because I shared a room with my brother, so I couldn't just turn on the light. So I'd go in the restroom so I could turn on the light and just read jokes because that would combat any like nightmare.
Wow. So, and that's how some of the humor and comedy was introduced. That's really interesting. So you get older and then you major in English. Do you think any of that, like writing as a kid, do you think that correlated into your switching into the English major type deal?
Oh yeah. Yeah, my mom pushed reading early. We were homeschooled, like you said, and then I went but that was only through 6th grade. 7th grade through high school, I attended magnet schools in Nashville, which are academic magnet schools. So I think all that reading set me up nicely. Like me, my brother, and sister all ended up at magnet schools.
What is a magnet school?
An academic magnet school, there's art magnets too, and others, but an academic magnet school is focused on academics and college preparation, but it's public. But there's a lottery to get in. You have to have certain test scores, and then the kids that have the test scores, there's not enough spots for them, so it's kind of a lottery. So I was fortunate in that regard too. But it's like top tier education at a public school level. Hume Fogg, where I went, is still ranked in the top 50 high schools in the country, like repeatedly by like U.S. News and World Report.
Oh my gosh!
So it was a good school. Yeah, it was hard. It was harder than college for me. When I went to college, I was like, oh, this is it was like high school with like 3 hours of homework a night.
Oh, oof. Sounds like you kicked college's butt, so it may have paid off.
College? Yeah, I mean, I got a degree in English, but I started trying to get a degree in accounting because I was with my high school girlfriend. And I was thinking about marrying her and like having a steady job and all that. And then when we broke up, I kind of switched to the English major and went more dream chasing.
Yeah.
I didn't really want to necessarily teach English or do anything like that my English degree would actually, help me with professionally. I just thought it was a good degree to have for wanting to create. At the time, I wanted to be a film auteur like the Coen brothers, or, this was in the late 90s when that indie film thing was huge. And like, all the guys my age wanted to be like the Coen brothers and Quentin Tarantino and that type of thing. So
that's where the dream came from. You're inspired by some of those guys to head west. Like that's a pretty big undertaking, especially like wanting to come out of college and head straight into it.
Yeah. I moved out with a friend who was going to Pepperdine for grad school and another third friend who was a singer-songwriter. We all just did it together.
Oh, nice.
The push I needed was Kevin saying, hey, I got into Pepperdine's grad school. Do you want to move to LA with me? I was like, Yes. So
That sounds nice. I would like to do that.
yeah, I moved out to LA twice. So that was the first time. And I didn't do much other than just be away from home for the first time and just experience that. I ended up living in close to Malibu, which if you in LA and you're trying to do something in the film business, you know how ridiculously far away that is. But I didn't realize it. So I'm in Calabasas, working at a restaurant in Malibu, and just kind of living life for a couple of years. I did write a screenplay, but I didn't make any kind of. I did get an internship at Paramount, which was the best thing as far as like connecting me a little bit. And then I wrote a short, and my friend read it and was like, "I want to produce this." Moved back to Nashville, where he was, and we tried to raise money, and we raised the money, and we shot it there, and tried to do the film circuit route. Which again, you have to go back to like 2005 at this point, and like it was way more. Still, the mode to get in was like make your short film, do the film festivals. It wasn't about making like a web series yet. So, but nothing really came of that. And I kicked around Nashville for a little while, and I was like, "This is ridiculous. For what I want to do, I have to be in LA." So I moved back the second time. It was like 2008, and then that whole time, by the way, I was not acting, or pursuing acting. I was more, I wanted to be behind the camera or writing, creating my own material, not acting in it. Even though acting was kind of my first love. And then I saw a Groundlings show and realized I missed performing so bad. And I auditioned there and got on. And that's when I started back into acting.
I want to touch on the short film real quick. This is this The Gospel According to Marquis? Is that the one?
Yeah, wow, you did great research.
Oh, of course, you have to. I want to know if there's anything that you learned from making that you still apply today in your career.
Oh, probably, yeah. One, my first love is acting. I feel like I really like performing. I could still do something where it's not me performing for sure. But that's the way I think now. I think about writing for myself, or how to showcase me as a performer more than then. At the time, it was like it never crossed my mind to be in it. I think that was a mistake. Not that there was a part for me. It's just the material I wrote. Everything was just kind of pushing me away from that. And it was more satisfying. It's also... The whole short is kind of a little jokey. I'm much more character driven now. Like I'm more inspired by stories that are more character based.
Yeah. And
this was more like live action Wallace and Gromit kind of style, where it's very visual. There's like 2 or 3 lines of dialogue in the whole thing.
Oh wow!
And it's real beat by beat visual, and I'm proud of it because I think Reagan is the DP producer on it. I think he did a fantastic job. I think we did a good job with it, but it doesn't grab you. It's just kind of like, oh, that was nice. And I strive to like be more emotionally connecting with the audience, I feel like, than that I was able to do.
Did you have experience going into that, writing a short film? Because I feel like that's a whole different ballgame probably from studying English, but you have this desire for film. It's your first short film, you know? That's so pretty.
Yeah, I'd written a couple of screenplays, but this felt more manageable to make. You know, it was something. It's the tale of these 2 preachers that have churches across from each other, and you know, the new preacher moves in across the street. So there's the guy who's been there a while, and he's very proud of his changeable copy marquee sign, saying these little pithy church messages. I don't know if you've seen these. Are you in San Diego?
I am, yeah.
I don't know if
they got the marquees.
Yeah, the one I remember that inspired this whole short was like, God answers knee mail.
Oh.
With the pun.
Yeah, the puns are always there.
So yeah, there's books about this now. And if you're in the South, you see these everywhere. So whoever it is, the preacher or whoever's in charge of it, really prides themselves on creating these little messages.
It's like one-liners.
Yeah. Twists on common phrases, puns that will hopefully get the person driving by to think, oh, that's funny, and maybe I should go give my life.
Go church.
Yeah. So the new preacher moves in and he starts doing it. He installs a changeable copy marquee sign and starts putting up messages. And it's a small town and people start thinking his are funnier. And so it becomes a pissing contest between these two preachers trying to one up each other. And then it turns like violent a little bit. It gets out of hand, I should say.
Yeah.
It's just a lighthearted kind of comedy, but yeah.
I mean, it sounds super fun.
It's still on YouTube, I think, if you want to watch it.
Oh, yes. I am for sure going to check that out.
I don't remember taking it down.
Maybe I'll throw it in the show notes, see get some more feedback on it.
YouTube only allowed you to do like up to 10 minutes. So it's like there's part 1, then you have to watch part 2.
Worth it. I want to stick on the topic of religion a little bit too, because as you mentioned, your dad didn't let you watch TV and things like that. But I also heard that when you were in your 20s and you were kind of thinking about getting into acting, like there was still some of that like religious part of you that was like, I don't know what roles I can play. And I feel like that may have also played a part in you keeping your hand at bay to some of those roles. Do you feel like you've broken free from that?
Yeah, I definitely do. It's not that roles were offered to me. I got ahead of it and said to myself in my 20s, well, I'm a, very conservative Christian, like with very strict moral code and do's and don'ts. How could I be an actor in LA where you're begging for parts, or you're desperate for parts. And if you finally get one and it goes against any of these things I won't do, I'm going to have to say no. So why even start down that road? It just seemed ridiculous, to me at the time. That's where I was at. So I said, well, I'll be a filmmaker, I'll be a writer, a director, and I'll create my own content and I can control it. I can be funny and all these things and not do anything that would go against my code at the time, So that was it. And then when I changed my point of view on all that, as far as religion and where I stand with all that, when I let go of some of that, I realized that wasn't in my way anymore. I would do anything. No.
The complete opposite.
So that's when I became it. No. Scared what I was about to say there. No. It wasn't in the way anymore, so I could perform and not worry about, because the things I was worried about weren't like asking me to do pornography. It's just I came from such a small-minded, like very ultra-conservative background that things that might not even be that risque to you would have been a problem for me and my family.
I'll tell you kind of like why that's so interesting to me, because I feel like I'm in the similar boat. Christian, been studying acting, and for probably like the first 9 months, maybe even more than that, like similar thought process of like, what can I even do? Like I don't use profanity, and like the first script I get is just 1,000 F-bombs, and I'm like, well, but how do you navigate that, and how do you stay a Christian, but like you have this passion to be an actor, and it's like these things that you want to do, but they kind of, they're not anti, but, and I think I've kind of came to a point where I'm not fully settled in on this. You probably have more insight than I do, but like almost like a separation of self, like this isn't like you're saying, this is a character. I'm portraying this person in this scenario. This isn't me on that stage being abrasive or being aggressive, like most of these characters do have extreme flaws or extreme tendencies. So it's like, I can't assume that it's me up there.
That's actually a very mature way of looking at it. That's how anyone should approach acting. It's just a weird art form in that it's still you So, you know what I mean? Like, what else does that? Like, if you're painting, you know, I guess it came from you. I don't know. I'd have to really think about it. But like, as an actor, it's really hard for people watching to completely forget that it's you, even if you do a great job of disappearing into the character. And for me, in my 20s, I was unable to imagine that completely enough to do things I wouldn't have done personally. But I think look, you have to understand, I don't have those beliefs anymore. So for me, it's going to be different. But I think it's for each person who has to make that decision for themselves. You know, I don't think it's an easy one.
Yeah. What changed, if you're willing to dabble?
Oh yeah. Excuse me. I taught an improv class this morning, so my voice is like a
little hoarse.
What changed? So it was a progression. So I was raised in the 80s and early 90s in Nashville, Tennessee, in the buckle of the Bible Belt, when it was at that point where all these mega churches were popping up for the first time, just everywhere. And mine, we joined the church, it was 500 people, and within a couple years, it was like 5,000. And it was awesome. Like, I was really active in the youth group. We had a youth drama team, so I was actually do sketches and plays and stuff as a teenager. Felt that nice safety of doing it at church, you know. And I loved it. I was like, you know, leading a Bible study. And, I wasn't someone who, like, my parents pushed that on me and I rebelled. I was like, yes, this is awesome. You know, I liked it. And it was a progression of seeing a lot of hypocrisy starting to pop up at the church, with a lot of leaders, not just one, not just five, but like a
majority,
lot, over and over, just like grotesque stuff, and things that shocked me and then stopped shocking me. And you get to a point where you go through the progression of like, well, that's just one example, that's this, that's that. And then you start going, man, this is such a pattern. And you start seeing it in a lot of other places too, that it just for the first time makes someone like me, for the first time, go, so what's so different about these people than people outside the church again? You know, what is exactly the difference? And this is someone who knew the Bible up and down and, you know, embraced it, you know, did mission trips and all that stuff. And this is like Pentecost. This is like speaking in tongues, very charismatic church services. I had a very emotional bond to my faith and all that. So for me to even scratch my head was like, okay. But it still didn't deter me. But it was just there. And then, you know, it's like you start realizing like all the people that I love the most as far as artists, filmmakers, musicians, the ones I really admired, not just for the art and craft that they made, but like when I'd read interviews about them and stuff, that I just admired the way they thought and all that. None of them shared my worldview. Like none of them. And I was just like, oh, that's weird. And then like I moved to LA for the first time. Like you could say LA is corrupting, I guess, but you could also say like just being away from where you grew up is very freeing in terms of like for the first time you are able to experience life without that immediate pressure of how it will be judged immediately by family that you feel when you're home or friends. So you're just out. And I was still a really conservative guy, you know, I'm living in Calabasas, but I think the first time I ever like really drank was out there. And I never did much of it really. Most of my life was just sweet tea and going to the local Chinese buffet with my friend Kevin and whatever. Yeah. And I would still go to church at Pepperdine. But things just kept, then it shifted to like, things stopped making sense about the actual Christian, I'll say this, because I think there's a wide range of interpretations. But the interpretation of Christianity and the Bible that I was raised in stopped making sense logically. So I'd be sitting there at church, and I just like, for the first time, I was never this guy when I was younger. But the preacher would say something, and I would just be like, what, really? And I would look into it. It just didn't make sense to me. It didn't make sense with the world I was looking at, with the people I knew. It just didn't add up. And then I started doing more of a dive into like reading about some of this stuff for the first time, by stuff not written by Christians, you know, like just to compare and contrast, and like this made more sense, that didn't. And it just started just not making more sense. And I was at this place of like real doubt, kind of on the fancy. And I was working on a film as a PA for a little low budget film, not an actor, as a PA. And I needed a ride home from a guy who was the line producer on the film. And he was driving me home, and we had just shot at this Christian school. He said, I think they were pissed off at us because the way some of the crew was talking and this and that. I said, oh, he goes, yeah, I mean, we only have like, we're at a Christian school. We only have one Christian on our crew, the wardrobe girl, whatever. I said, oh, and me. And he goes, you? I go, yeah. He goes, I didn't know that. Are you serious? And he was someone who I would describe as like anti-Christian.
Yeah.
And so when he heard that, we have like 15 minutes of drive left. And he was like, so wait.
Yeah.
So you believe blah, blah. And he started kind of quizzing me, interrogating me on the basic tenets of Christianity. And stuff that, quite frankly, in my heart, I had been doubting. He didn't know this for a while now. And so he'd say, and I go, well, and he'd ask this, and I go, well. And then finally I stopped him. I felt like I was just being pushed against a wall. And I said, look, I'll be completely honest with you. I'm not really sure I believe some of this anymore right now either. And he goes, oh. And he saw like I was kind of rattled. He's like, all right, let's talk about something. And I went home that night, and I sat in my room, and I was like, I don't think I do. And for the first time, I remember making a conscious mindset shift to go, I'm not deciding anything. I'm just going to first time allow myself to look at the world as if it was not true for the first time, honestly, and just experience that for a few days, weeks, or whatever. Read things from that point of view for the first time. And it felt terrifying. Like I was jumping off a cliff. Because my family and friends, everybody I knew was all based in that. And I did it. And I suddenly went from that scary feeling to this, it was invigorating. I felt so alive and excited. I started to be able to see people in my life through a different lens. Like, are they good or bad? Not, are you a Christian or not? Like, before I needed to kind of know if you were a Christian or not, because it would kind of help me understand who you were. And then if you were cool or good or whatever came second. And now I didn't have to worry about that. And I had all these like problems with how I felt about, there'd be all these people in my life that I thought were great, but I couldn't completely embrace them because I had this filter, for instance, with homosexuality. I was taught that it was wrong. And so like I would meet people that were gay and I thought they were amazing people, but I had this filter of like, well, but they're on their way to hell, you know, in my mind. And so that was gone, and I could just like embrace people in my life that were just amazing people and not worry about these things that I was supposed to believe about them. So that was very freeing. And then it just became look, and that was the beginning, but you have to, from where I came from, it took years after that to really, because now I had to think about how I believed about everything, not how I was supposed to. For the first time in my 20s, I'm like, well, how do I actually feel about this? So that was my personal journey with it.
And reevaluate everything, kind of where your identity was made up of, and reconstruct your own. Did you, when you started to reevaluate the world in a sense, where did you find yourself pulling like moral boundaries from then after that?
To me, it was just like, it was way more exciting to do that, what you just said, to like find moral boundaries in things that just like the golden rule and, you know, I'm still, and it's kind of fun to still be doing that, to still be finding boundaries and moving and understanding the world a little more clear as I get older. But a lot of them, I've thought, like you just asked, I was like, well, how will I know right and wrong and all these things anymore without that? And it became just obvious. Like, it's still so obvious. You don't kill somebody. You don't lie to people. You don't, you treat them well. You treat people with respect. You, all these things it helps you interact with other people better and the world. It makes the world, I want to make the world a better place. I want to leave it better than I found it, kind of. I want people to come away from experiences with me feeling better about themselves and me. That's my code, I guess, is sharing love, and that's what I think about all the time now. And I don't know what that has to do with any religion. It's just like
just who you became to be.
Yeah,
the lifestyle you chose to live.
And some of that was from my family and probably church. Like, how can I separate myself from? There was so many great people at church too, and my parents were loving, and I think a lot of who I am is because of a lot of great influences at church. So I'm not someone who just thinks it's all garbage, But like, I just think it's in spite of. Like, there's great people and bad people in the church. There's great people and bad people outside of the church. It's just some people decide to be in church, and unfortunately, some people in that church decide this is the only way, and everyone else is doomed. And that's the part that I do feel kind of some way about.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on? we're going down the rabbit hole. What are your thoughts on like post life? So now we have this life, and it's interesting because I think sometimes as like a creative, there's always like a battle of legacy, what I want to leave behind, what I want people to think when I'm gone. But on the flip side, like, what happens when we're gone? Like, there's two parts of that,
Yeah. Well, the first part is I think I won't really be around to notice what I've left artistically. So it's like, on one hand, it kind of doesn't matter. But on the other hand, I think it's very natural as a creative to want to leave something behind that you'd be remembered for. But honestly, I think that's individual. For me, I'm more obsessed with the moment. Like, I want to entertain someone in the moment way more than I am occupied with leaving behind a legacy. Like, I don't really think about that much. What I obsess over is if I'm making a funny sketch video for TikTok or whatever, I'm more obsessed with, will this make someone laugh? My favorite comments I get are like, I had a horrible day. I opened up the app, saw your video, and you made me laugh. Thank you so much. You kind of saved my day. And that makes me so happy. And so I just want to make people laugh, to entertain them here in the moment. That's it. It gives me a lot of pleasure. I don't really care about legacy. And then the second part of that, one, no one knows what happens after we die. So I'm not arrogant enough to say I know. But I have a hint. I have an inkling that nothing does. I honestly think we just die. But if we don't, then there's two thoughts on that. One, I do believe there's something like greater than us. I feel like it's an energy that moves through us and connects us all. And I don't even think it's that foo-foo to say that. I think it's just like, you can almost measure it. There's something to be said about you attract what you think about, and there's an energy to that and connectedness. And if there's something about our physical bodies that connects with that, or our non-spiritual bodies that moves on after we die, that's connected to that, then so be it. I think that's cool, but I don't have any grasp on that. But this idea from the church of like afterlife where you go to heaven or hell, I think is so absurd and ridiculous. And I don't talk this way about too much, but that part really annoys me. Like, Because if you really think about it, to me, this is just me, and I know there's smarter people than me that would probably hear this and go, "Oh, I set you straight." But the idea of a God who would create a situation where he's like, "Yeah, let's create this really perfect place in the worst, most miserable place of all time, and then I'm going to create people, and then I'm going to make them have to choose on Earth between the right and wrong choices. And if they choose wrong, I'm going to punish them. People that never asked to be created. I created this because I was lonely and angels weren't enough. So I need people like me, but not like me, but kind of physical versions of me that just go through this like obstacle course. And if they don't do well, then I'm going to punish the people I created to hell. Is the kind of God, quite frankly, I would never want to spend time with. So, like, you can have your heaven. If it is, basically what I'm saying is, if it is true, yikes. And if it's not true, then oh well. But it's if it is true, I think we should all run screaming from that God right now, because that's a really mean person. Could you imagine a human that did that?
I cannot imagine. Like
I went off on a little tangent, but that one gets me a little.
Oh, I'm happy I found it. I'm happy I found the tangent part. Yeah, I think so. I am still a Christian, and I do believe in the Christian values, and I do think, like, I'm on the side that God loves us and he has the plan for us. But I am starting to understand that I'm understanding that now a lot of my viewpoints are formed from having grown up around the church, and that there are narratives that I just innately do believe because of the way I grew up. And I'm at a point where I'm challenging them, but I still do not believe them. I do think God, I still have the hope that God does love us, and that he is omnipotent and he cares about us and all of that. But I will say, I have had my eyes opened quite a bit, just realizing that there are other narratives of what the gospel is perceived to be. And your point exactly of, like, God, there, like, if that is true, there is a heaven and hell, and why would that be a thing? And then there's tons of questions of why that I simply cannot answer. But it's all
there is a way to interpret the Bible that doesn't include this literal place of eternal punishment, physical thing. There's a way to view it as, I mean, some Christians would say it's blasphemy, but I think it's healthier to view it in more allegorical terms and one version of many, because there's a lot of faiths around the world that point to some of the same stories, and they're all striving to kind of tell one story, that there's something greater than us that is guiding us, or that, to help us understand a reason. Because if you take that away, some people go mad. They're like, then what's the point? Like, what is the point of all this? And I find where I find that is in relationships. I find it in my wife and my son. I find it in creating and entertaining others. Because quite frankly, I don't think there's anything after this. So I'm like, well, I find it in little small moments. I find it in a really good pizza.
Yeah.
I find it in my time with my brother. I find it in this moment with you is meaningful to me. The students I teach improv to, a small moment where someone gets it and levels up, people finding more happiness in life really motivates me. I think you have to find your purpose here. It's here. This is it. And when we start making it about something after this, it's sadder to me.
Yeah, that's tough. Your sentiment of this is it, I feel like is very, what's the right word? I think you live out that well, because from what I've seen, you do the no backup plan mantra, which I think works in your favor from everything that I've seen. As far as like wanting to pursue in acting, which is already a very like just rejection based industry. I almost feel like rejection oriented. So let's switch over to that. Let's go to the Groundlings, where everything that I know about the Groundlings, I've taken one class there, just the beginners improv, and it seems like it is a grind to get to the top, where you are performing each week and also writing a skit each week. How are you staying afloat with all of that?
It's really intense. A lot of people break up with their girlfriends, boyfriends during that time, like at that Sunday company level and that level. It's so much. It's so time consuming, but it's also amazing. I mean, where else do you have a situation where you are writing for yourself? You're writing to showcase your characters, and you put them up on stage on Sunday night, week after week, and you don't have to beg your friends to come see it. It's going to be probably sold out anyway. You know what I mean? And then that's exhilarating. And but it is a grind. But most people doing it that go that far really love it. Really love doing that style. It's this transformative character style. So you're creating these characters, and then you're writing sketches to showcase them. Mm-hmm. And it's fun.
I have an acting friend that says every script that you perform ends up becoming a piece of you in real life. Do you think each character that you create, you take with you?
I don't really feel like it that way. What I think is I put a little of parts of me into these characters.
Yeah.
Like I have I do these waiter sketches on TikTok and Instagram. And the customers are really fun to play. I put on the wigs and play the customers. Hilarious. And there's one I've done 2 parts of that people love, and it's this husband and wife. The husband just makes really bad, like, dad jokes to the waiter. Mm-hmm. And he's really fun to play. And he's really kind of Midwestern, over the top, like he'll stare at you till you laugh at his joke kind of guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh? And he has that laugh. But if I'm being honest, like, I love dad jokes. And, like, I'm awful about it. Like, I try to hold it in. But I do. Like, there's a little bit of me in that guy. And there's also a little bit of me in this wife who is sitting there rolling her eyes, you know?
Yeah.
Because, like, I will do that, and I'm also annoyed that I do it. So I just try to find – I go that way with it more than I think.
The opposite.
But I could definitely see where he's coming from. I also heard a quote, like, actors live the most lives.
Oh, wow. I believe that. Yeah, that sounds true. Or at least have more perspective on it. You're living somebody else's life. Or...
If you really do it right, if you really dive into that character 1,000%, you experience a different person's life for a little while. And most people can't say that.
Yeah. I think I've learned more about empathy from acting than almost anything else. Like when having to be... I mean, at least at my studio, they always set up these crazy scenarios of, like, you just got cheated on, or you come home and you see your girlfriend with another man, and she's going to tell you that they aborted your baby, and you're like, oh, man. You know, it's like, I feel like that's when my empathy is like, man, that would really suck. That would really blow if that happened to me.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Yeah, that's it. Vulnerability, empathy, listening is the thing. Improv and acting is... helped me the most with is listening, but vulnerability is what I'm working on more now. I have an acting coach I work with, and that's the thing I told him right off the bat. I'm like, that I want to focus on the most is being more vulnerable. As a comedian, sometimes it's hard to just take something as it comes to you and experience it in a vulnerable way. I want to, like, find the humor in it, and sometimes that throws up a block, you know, to my emotions, because I'm turning it into more of the funny side of it instead of just letting it hit me in a scary way.
Yeah,
because humor is like my defense mechanism. Yeah, that's like my thing.
That's what I was gonna say. I've heard this as well, and you can tell me if this reigns true for you, that most comedians, become comedians because of some sort of painful thing that happened to them. They're
You
trying
shut
to.
up. You don't know me. I'm sorry. No. Go on. I'm sorry.
No, that's literally it. Like, oh man, my girlfriend broke up with me. I should go do a stand up right now so I can get this off
This
my
podcast
chest.
is over.
Yeah.
If you can see me right now, I'm ripping off my microphone and I'm throwing it on the ground, and I just poured my coffee in Nick's face.
I'm done. I'm hurt. Get out of here.
See, I'm using humor to mask some raw emotional thing. I don't know what it is. I had a really happy childhood. Matter of fact, I'll say this because of what you just said. I remember when I was younger and I wanted to be a comedian. I wanted to be a comedic actor and all that. I was worried because I read all that too, that most comedians come from really painful experiences, really screwed up childhoods. Their dad left, or they got beat by an alcoholic father, and traumatic experiences lead to the really funny people. And I was like, I want to be funny, but like my parents are so loving.
I need something traumatic to happen to me ASAP.
Yeah, I was just like, man. So I think I created myself. In my 30s, I created my own trauma. I haven't talked about it yet, but like that. But my urge to be funny, and I was funny before that. So I don't know if you need that, but that is definitely a narrative. It's like comedy comes from pain. But I had such a little cushy. I mean, our pain was like we didn't eat out enough for me. The rich kids.
We got food at home.
Eat after church. We would go home and eat pot roast. That was my pain. That's where my comedy came from.
Oh man, hey, pain is pain, man. I'm not gonna knock it. Mm-hmm. Are you touching on the substance abuse as for the self-induced trauma? I am curious. How did that start?
The girl I was with at the time was a member of a theater, and she would occasionally do stuff there, and it really bothered me because I was anti-drugs all the way through my 20s into my early 30s, and I was like, but she convinced me that it was just so, infrequent, and I wasn't a part of it, and I liked her and whatever. And then she kept asking me to do ecstasy, and I would say, no. And one day we finally just did it, the two of us at home, and it just blew my mind. If you've never done it, try it. It is fantastic. I'm
a huge advocate.
And so we did that multiple times, and it's the classic like tale of like, oh, I just tried it, and then try a little more, and blah, blah. Next thing you know, I'm doing cocaine, and then she and I got to a point where we were doing it together so much, and we agreed to stop, and she did, but I couldn't.
Oh, wow.
So then I started hiding it from her. So I'm like now alone every night. It wasn't even a party drug for me. Literally me alone after working at a restaurant, coming home till like 3 a.m, doing cocaine and drinking like an insane amount, and like just passing out, and then going through my day as if everything was normal, hiding it as best I could, and then repeat. And I would just like, it was all in secret. No one knew. No one but my dealer, and it was like, and then years went by, just kind of, I would keep trying to stop on my own. Because, I wanted to stop while it was still secret. And then I could be like, all right, I did it. I'm done with it. No one was the wiser of my 5 years as a cokehead. Yeah. And like, I just couldn't. I finally had to reach out to someone, a friend of mine from the Groundlings who was very vocal about being clean. I remember him talking about it on social media, celebrating his years of being clean. And I was so jealous of it. And he was such a good guy. And I remember he was the one I texted. Mm-hmm. I said, I just need someone to know, blah, blah, blah. And then I dumped out the rest of what I had and never looked back. I started going to meetings at Narcotics Anonymous for a while. And then I stopped doing that. But that was definitely what helped me early on. And I've been 5.5 years clean. And the thing that really helped is my wife and I started seeing each other soon after that. And she's just been a rock. And, you know, I just find a lot more to live for now, and I'm excited about. And so it just seems absurd to do that now. But at the time, I was in a really dark place, miserable, and things weren't working. You know, it was just I medicated myself.
Yeah. What was? Can you describe some more of those feelings? Like, why so dark? What was making those thoughts so dark? What was pushing you to continue? Like outside of the addiction sense of the drug itself.
Yeah. It was a toxic relationship, this girl. You know, no ill feelings towards her. She's great in a lot of ways. She and I together, it was toxic. I was not happy. There was stuff going on personal between us that was bad. And it probably should have ended way sooner than it did. But I had decided we were in it for the long haul, and I was going to marry her and all this. But I never actually asked her. But I was thinking that was what we were doing.
Yeah.
So, and it was the first really serious relationship like that. And so I thought this is just what relationships are. You know, now I'm in a much happier one. I'm like, oh my God, why would I have ever? But
yeah.
A lot of us do that. We stay in bad relationships because we don't think there's something. We think this is it. Maybe that's all we've seen around us is miserable people. But you don't have to be. But I was stuck in that, and I was miserable. And then I was miserable because I was in my early to mid 30s, and things had not panned out like I wanted as an actor or writer. And I had just been met with too much rejection, and it's really hard. And then I tried this thing, and it made me feel so good. You know, it just like, at least for several hours every night, I was numb. So it went from feeling good to like doing this thing that just made me numb for a little while.
Escapism, yeah.
I don't even remember. You get high, like when you become a cokehead and you're doing it that much by yourself daily, you have like 10 minutes of high, and then you have like 3 hours of like numb.
Yeah.
You're just like, but you know, your body just needs it, so you just keep doing it. It's just pathetic. But yeah, I was medicating the feelings of failure and being miserable in the relationship, and thinking like, you know, everybody said I was going to be this and this. You're so talented. You're going to, you know, and none of it happened. And they didn't know those secret moments between me and the casting director where I totally bombed and I was humiliated.
Yeah.
And back home, they're all like, you're so talented, this and that. And here I am. I'm a joke. I'm a freaking joke, you know? Like, I can't even get through an audition without falling apart for 3 lines for a whatever, you know? And just, they'll never see me again. And I burned another bridge. And I'm just, now I'm so old, like, I can't do anything else. And you just feel like a failure. So anything that can medicate you is like, okay.
Yeah. Let's give this a try. This might make me feel better than I do right now.
Yeah.
What's your mindset now then? Because I imagine I haven't gone to too many auditions to like fully. I've failed at enough auditions to know like what you're describing to a smaller degree. But what's your mindset now with all of that? Because I imagine your family telling you you're talented wasn't wrong, but they didn't know everything that's going on. And now there's this almost additional pressure to like slay every audition because of it. And what's your perception of self within the acting industry?
Well, I've gotten a lot more comfortable with failure, and improv kind of gave me that gift too. And teaching improv the last 4 years has really helped. Once I started teaching, I started relearning all this stuff I learned as a student, but kind of mastering it and really, really digging deeper into some of the lessons of it and being comfortable with failure. But also I've become a better actor, and I understand I took the time to actually take more classes, coach, and I just feel more confident in situations now moving forward. So part of it's just technical reps and like getting better. Yeah. I really, early on in my career, I didn't take the right classes. I didn't take enough classes. It was like a cocky, weird pride mixed with nervousness. It was a really bad cocktail to try to be an actor in this town. And so I later finally took the classes and learned some techniques and breathing exercises and learning how to listen better and how that gets you out of your head. And then also just being more comfortable with like failure and not putting all your eggs in one basket, and just diversifying your interests and things that make you happy so that you don't put everything on an audition or
My whole life rides on this. I have to
creating
get this
your own
gig.
content help. Yeah, creating your own content helped, and like again, I'll say it again. My wife Andrea, and having a baby, that helps. And like you put things above you. A lot of good, healthy things can come out of moving you away from the center of your own life.
Yeah.
Putting someone else in the center of a conversation. And putting someone else in the center of your day or a lunch, or as an actor, putting it on the reader or the other actor, putting them as the center, putting your attention on them makes you a better actor. Putting your attention on a person in a conversation makes you a better listener. So there's a lot that I learned from just making it not about me as much, making it as much as that we can as humans, making it more about another person.
Let's speak about Andrea then for a bit, because you've chopped it up and said that she is incredibly supportive. I want to know what traits about her have made her support you so well.
Well, I remember the first date, which she says wasn't a date, but I remember thinking,
come on, it's a date.
She said she intentionally bought the movie tickets herself, so I would not think it was.
It's a power move right there.
Yeah. So, but I remember being struck with what a good listener she was. Right? And so that was the first thing that I think makes her amazing is her listening. She also has just a huge heart. She's had people that she has never met from other countries that she has like helped, that still credit her to this day for saving their lives, because she opened up to them and helped them through really dark times when they were maybe suicidal and that kind of thing. She's just really compassionate, has a big heart. And then she is a dreamer too, so she kind of has the same mindset as me about the way the world works, and how you have to find joy in the here and now and look for little adventures. She's very adventurous in a small way and big ways, but like she'll love to take a road trip on just a Tuesday for an hour to some cool little shop she heard an hour away in the desert. We just got to visit. They have like, so we'll do that little stuff that just makes life fun, and so those are some of my favorite things about her. But she just won't let me stop. If I'm ever down, she's the one saying, you have to keep doing this. You were meant for this. This is who you are.
Is that why you keep going too? Because outside of what she is also saying, but like, I think sometimes when I think about like giving up, quitting all of this creative stuff, I'm like, well, this is what I like to do. Then what would I do if I quit? Like there's nothing else.
It's who you are. There's a reason you take acting classes, start a podcast. There's a reason you do all this. Most people don't do that.
You got to go for it.
You do it because you are. That's what you are.
I want to ask you about what you think the future of the industry holds in regards to how COVID is going to affect it. Such as, do you think as we move forward and productions start getting going again, do you think more productions are going to move towards self-tapes, and this is going to open the industry up to like no longer just LA, the whole country is submitting toward gigs, or what do you foresee the future being?
I think already the country was like, you could still do so much in like Atlanta and places in Canada and Detroit. There's a lot of places, but I think definitely self-tapes are going to be way more the thing. I think even if you live in LA, you're going to be putting yourself on tape a lot more than you used to. So a lot less miles to claim with the tax guy later. No,
That's
that was
nice.
all kind of gone anyway.
Yeah.
No, the lot less miles on the car. But here's the thing: they move so fast with production. There's two things: how the speed they move with production and the cost of flying and boarding people. I think are still going to be the reasons why you need to be in LA. So even if you put yourself on tape, they're going to maybe start shooting 2 days from then or a week
Yeah.
or whatever. It's best to have an actor who's here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that just makes sense, particularly with like commercials. It's just like you will audition, shoot, and sometimes call back, and sometimes you're shooting a few days later, or at least going to the fitting.
Yeah.
And so that's the reason. And then the budget, they have to fly the actor out, put him up, and all that stuff, versus someone who's just here. Could be wrong, but I think it makes sense that some productions would be way more open to non-LA based talent for sure. I think there's probably a piece of that pie that gets shared a little bit more, but I think most of it, for those reasons, still makes sense to be central.
Yeah. I wonder if also, since quarantine has been almost extended for so long, that if writers have been plowing away on scripts, and as soon as the industry opens back up, we're going to be having a huge influx of more things being creative because of everything that's being written right now.
My friend is a writer, he and his writing partner, and I was talking to him about this about a month into quarantine, and he's like, I've been doing so many meetings, pitching, and he said it was because all these executives, Netflix and everywhere, are trying to prove their worth, that the need for their job. So they were like reaching out to him, going, "Hey, you have anything to pitch? You have anything to pitch?"
Oh wow!
They're at home and they're not like around each other to kind of like finesse and all that. So it was like, "Hey, what do you got? I want something to talk about. I want So they were writing and having meetings and pitching constantly during all this. So I think there is going to be a lot of material.
Maybe this was a good shake that the industry needed. Who knows? Like if more scripts are getting pushed in red, I can't see that as a bad thing per se.
Me either. And I believe in that saying, like, the only constant in life is change. So like anytime I feel myself tightening my grip on something that's I can't control,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I have to remind myself of that. Do you know that feeling of like, ooh, I like this thing that's happening right now, or the way this job is going right now,
Yeah.
or my living situation or whatever, so much. I hope it never changes. You're really setting yourself up, where I think it's healthier to just constantly be like, well, this is going to shake it up. Things are going to be different, and don't be afraid by it, but be like, you're kind of exuding is like, hey, who knows what'll change, but whatever it changes, we'll adapt and we'll figure it out and
move forward from there.
Yeah.
We're going to move on to TikTok because we have to talk about it. We can't not talk about TikTok, right?
Yeah.
I feel like we got to touch on it a little bit. How did it feel when you had a TikTok first blow up, especially coming off of a year of making videos on YouTube? Because I've been there too, making videos on YouTube and not like putting work in day after day, and it's not getting as big of a return as you like. But then TikTok comes around. How did it feel? Oh my gosh.
That blessed algorithm.
Yeah.
Yeah, TikTok's like, hey, let's take your video and show it to 500 people. And if like 100 of them like it and 80 of them comment, then that means we'll show it to 10,000 people. And if a bunch of them do it, we'll show it to 100,000. And if they love it, we'll show it to 1 million.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing like YouTube doesn't have. YouTube is like, you have to climb over some wall, like in Game of Thrones, to get to it, to an audience, So that was exciting. The first one that I remember kind of going semi-viral was when I only had a few hundred followers, maybe, if that. Was one I made just one night on the spur of the moment in the app. I was just like me thinking about, having an idea for a TikTok. Ooh, what if this happens? It could go viral and I'll get a blue check mark and I'll quit my job and I'll travel the world and blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, it's too much work or whatever. And then I just go back to scrolling and I put it in music and people went nuts over it. And like other people in other countries were doing their version of it in other languages, like using the sound and doing it and copying it. And I was like, oh my God. And then the one that really went bigger than that was, I put a lot of effort into, used green screen. It was about kind of a funny take on the 5-second rule when you drop food. Mm-hmm. And that one blew up even bigger. And I was like, oh, right after that, I did my first waiter one. That one really exploded. And I was like, I have something here, because not only did people love this, I've got 1 million of these because I've been serving for 23 years. And if they like this, okay, I've got something. So that was exciting. And I just decided to scrap everything else and go just these waiter videos. I was like, this will be my niche.
Yeah. And you knocked it out of the park. I feel like, and you know what's interesting to me, having done a little bit more research on you, it seems like this has almost been like an underlying niche the whole time, because you had a blog and you had the server updates on Facebook that people seem to like love. It's like you had these stories in your bag that you are now able to turn into a platform that people are going to appreciate it even more.
It did feel like that. It didn't occur to me until it was happening. I was like, oh, everything's kind of been heading towards this. The experience as a server, which a lot was miserable, but it gave me all these stories. Mm-hmm. My year of making the YouTube channel that failed gave me all the equipment and the ability to move fast and play it and shoot it and get used to churning out content. My time at the Groundlings gave me the ability to play characters, so I could like play realistically the customers and the waiter. And the wigs I had through Groundlings. Yeah. And just, and then it just kind of felt like, oh, this is like, this is a good little fit for me.
It's very fulfilling for me to see like everything come together, especially just like seeing the hard work and seeing how like all of these skill sets came together to build this. Do you know where you want to take it, or are you riding the wave, having fun?
I'm riding the wave, but I have a lot of ideas. I run out of time, with the 1-year-old
and Groundlings.
But I have all these ideas because I want to do more long format, because the TikTok limit is a minute. And I can stitch some of them together. But for YouTube and Facebook, I want to create 3 minutes plus like videos. So I have all these ideas. I've written down and I'm ready to go. It's time, and some of them will require other people and that kind of thing. And then also I would love to get more opportunities as an actor through it too. I would love for casting people to see them and get opportunities that I would not have had otherwise. I want this to be my way in to some rooms. I would like to have meetings to talk about pitching shows and that kind of thing. But if none of that happened, I'd still be very happy just making this content and getting paid for it. I would love to just be able to focus on that and then coach and teach improv in a more flexible way. Because I do enjoy that. But I'd love to build up my audience enough to where I could get more brand deals and things like that, to where I was able to, and through the different ways of making money through the different social network medias, that would be ideal. Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. We're approaching the final question of the podcast.
Okay.
Why is it so important for you to pursue all of this? Have a heavy plate with a lot of stuff on it, creating Groundlings, acting. What's it mean to you?
I think it's like it comes back to this urge and need I've always had to entertain people. It makes me feel very fulfilled and happy. And I just love doing it. And so the idea of seizing an opportunity in front of me that would give me the ability to do this more regularly, to fill more of my time with this instead of other things that I don't enjoy doing, is such a rare thing. I feel like that people find. And the people that find that, you know, they get to say, oh, I never work a day in my life because I love what I do. That's what I want. I want to be able to say that with a straight face. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Drew, thank you so much for being on the show. Where can we find you on the internet?
Well, I'm on Tik Tok,
Mm-hmm.
Drew_Talbert. I'm on Instagram at Drew Talbert. I am on YouTube. My channel's name is Drew Talbert. And I am on Facebook, and I have a Facebook page for the waiter videos that I'd like to build up more, but it's Facebook.com/Drew Talbert FB. And I have a website I'm building, but it's not really ready for prime time. That, and yeah, Gospel According to Marquis, if you want.
That's right.
I think it's still on YouTube. And I think the failed YouTube channel is still up too, the Curtis Creep Show, but I'm probably going to be taking that down soon. So I'll give you a few hours
to check that out. You can't take those down. Not a
By the way,
chance.
I made a video like every week, but I hid most of them. I left up some. So even if you find it, you're not going to see all of my vulnerable, crappy learning process videos. Just a few of them.
I don't think they're all that crappy because I watched them, but yes, I agree. Also, you made a web series too. Can I throw that in there? Am I allowed to throw the grass growing web series?
Grass grow? Oh my God. Is that on there? The internet?
It's on there, yeah. I thought it was a pretty interesting idea for sure.
One thing, right? The little.
Yeah.
No, God, that's amazing.
Hilarious. Love it.
Let's say I was high at the time.
Got it. Fair deal.
I did have a problem. Let's remember that. But I have done. There was something I did with Ian Gary and Jen Smedley. Mom So Hard. Some of your listeners might know that. She's one of the moms on that. They tour and stuff. But before she did that, her and Ian Gary, who's a great actor, I think he's in the new Top Gun coming out. Bunch of others. He's in like every national commercial you see too. And he's fantastic. Three of us did made a few episodes of Never Not Safe for Work, but I think it's on Funny or Die. It's
wow.
Literally, it's been a while. I think the one episode that Ian and I wrote is I'm Not in Love with My Cousin. You can find that. It's a little crass. So if you're, it's a little crasser subject matter.
Yeah, it's a little spicy.
But it's funny.
Yeah. I'll throw them all in the show notes. So I'll try to collect as many as I can and put them down there.
Yeah. Okay.
Sweet.
Just not the grass grow.
No, the grass grow has to be on there. If I watched it, the people got to know.
Hey man, it's your show.
Thanks, Drew, for being on. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. And yeah, you're great, and your pre-research is impeccable.
Thank you.
Do you get complimented for that a lot?
You're the second one to compliment. I think other people are just like, yeah, you know about my life. Come on now. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course you should.
Yeah.
Like they've ever been on a podcast where the host knew that much about them.
Exactly. That's what I keep telling them.
Incredible, especially. You should be proud of that.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
That's it?
We have to say bye.
What?
You have to say bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
That was the podcast. You just listened to it. Next Friday, 6 a.m., you're going to tune in, and you know what you're going to hear? You're going to hear Nick and Kyle talking about minimalism. They're going to talk about their experiences living in the famous burb. These days, there's a lot of things that distracts your attention. Living minimal, not a lot of stuff. Be pretty nice. Not a lot of attachments, things holding you back. Just go. Be free. Anyways, the real reason you're still here. What does a boat do when it gets sick? It goes to the dock, of course. If I need to explain that, just reach out and I will. Anyways, see you guys next week. Thank you for listening. Leave a review. I don't know why Nick lets me do this, but thank you for your support. See ya.